Hello, everyone. Andrew Rosen, President and Partner at Diversified Lifelong Advisors. Welcome to my first video blog. This is a video recap, not just a summary of my most recent blog for those that prefer video or want to see my pretty face. I appreciate it. And to kick off my first video blog, it's going to be on what just happened to me, which is I just turned 40. Now, I don't like birthdays, or my birthday, I should say. I love other people's historically, but I am 40 and trying to turn over a new leaf. So in that vein, I'm a big proponent of reflecting, and in my space, I've seen more people's finances than most anyone you can imagine, and I've coached most people, and I can tell you through both coaching and living through the 30s what I've seen and reflected about what I've learned about personal finance in my 30s. And of course, Facebook keeps us reminding what we looked like 10 years ago, much less gray, if any. I look much younger. I don't feel much older, but Facebook suggests otherwise. Also, in my early 30s, I wasn't wearing sweaters with collars under it, but here we are today, and this is what old men do. So anyways, let me tell you what I learned so you can share it with yourself if you're in your 30s, or you can share with family or kids or grandkids or whomever, and it's still solid advice, I think, for any age. So without further ado, what did I learn about personal finances in my 30s? So for starters, you can't talk about wealth and building it without talking about foundation. And so what is the foundational tools that I went through in my 30s to build a good foundation for my financial future? Well, for me, it was protection. Life insurance, disability insurance. And as my career and life have blossomed, generally early in 30s, a lot of people don't have many kids these days. We didn't. We now have multiplied somehow, still figuring that out. And that was, now we have 3 kids, Aviva, Isabella, and my little man, Emmett. And I have to protect him. I've unfortunately lived through friends and clients and seen tragedy happen. And the last thing I wanted to do is get disabled or prematurely die from an unforeseen incident and leave my family in financial ruins. So you can't talk about wealth until you talk about protecting it. So that was my first lesson in protection. And I've incrementally added to support my lifestyle. We went from modest lifestyle to a nice lifestyle in that decade. And so my first principle is protect yourself. You need that foundation before you can start stacking on it. Next, part of the foundation to me that I went through a progression in my 30s was creating that emergency fund. First, it was creating that 3 months, which was a stretch, 3 months of expenses in cash savings. Then as I was able to live within my means and made more income, I went to 6 months of reserve. Then I got to the point where I felt I had enough in cash that I really don't need to add to it, maybe incrementally here or there. But I started a non-retirement investment account, which to me can be used if I eat through my 3 or 6 months of expenses that I'm protecting. And I did so. And now I have a non-qualified, non-retirement investment account that is to me, another savings account, although mentally I'm thinking of it as future funds for retirement. But that's where we went next. So principle 2, what I learned is the importance of an emergency fund, because again, I've seen a lot of unforeseen things and I lived through it, and you want to protect yourselves. Next on my priority list was my retirement savings. I can't be in this industry without really advocating for how important it is. I tell people investing in retirement savings is both a marathon and a sprint. I wish I had $1 million 10 years ago in investments and I was able to squirrel it away, because today that would have multiplied many times over with where the markets have gone. And so it's a sprint because you want to get as much money in as quickly as possible. And it's also a marathon because the compounding effects. So I really saw that take place, and I went from 10 to 15% savings in a 401k to trying to max it out, to figuring out what do you do after you max out your 401k. And I see that with a lot of clients, as well as the 30s are really big from a career standpoint. And so I really saw incomes for a lot of people in their 30s get to a point where they can really start saving above and beyond maxing out that 401k, which I've always advocated is probably my number one item as far as financial planning tip: max out that 401k. College. I would tell you college savings for my kids, 3 of them, went from modest to decent. Your early 30s, you put a few dollars away. I prioritize retirement much more than college. They're both important, but one is a higher priority. Can't borrow for retirement. You can borrow for college. I like to think my kids are all going to Harvard on full scholarships, but maybe not. So college, start small, make sure the foundation is strong, make sure you feel comfortable, you run plans that you increase as you're able to, and do whatever you're comfortable with. Not everyone can pay fully for college. Most people can't. There's $1 trillion+ in student loans. And so I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying prioritize. And so I learned that in my 30s as I had to reshuffle what was important, what I needed to take care of first and foremost. Next thing I learned in my 30s was debt. More importantly, how to stay out of debt. From my vantage point, I've seen all kinds of debt, from student loan to credit card to car loans, mortgages, of course. And you really want to manage that debt as carefully as possible. And so when I look at debt management, I really look at it from stay out of detrimental debt. It's okay if you have it's okay if you have mortgages. You want to make sure they're maintained. You can afford them. And car loans, same thing. They're not terrible. They're generally pretty low interest rates, and they're a necessity to some degree. But you can overpay them a little here or there. They're a tool, they're a resource, and utilize them as such. Career. So something I've really seen, again, both anecdotally through me and through others, is the 30s is where your career is solidified. I went through some soul searching in my late 20s, figuring out should I stay in financial services. On the back end of the 08-09 financial crisis, maybe the worst industry to be in at that time. And I stuck with it. And I'm thankful I did, because one, it's my passion. I live for this, as do my partners, David and Kyle, and Sam and Pete in our Wayne office, and Irv. This is our passion. And so you follow your passion and good things come. And I've seen that a ton through other people. And what happens is, at this point, I'm essentially a 20-year financial service expert. You can't be my age with more experience. And so as you become more experienced, you warrant a higher pay, or you warrant a higher demand in the marketplace. We all want the 30-year surgeon who said he's done 10,000 gallbladders or whatever. And so your 30s really is that time where you sort of find your footing, you find your career. And what was important to me was I really learned about myself, and I learned about my career. And you really go from getting by to really where you're meant to be. And so I think that's important and a big life lesson. Housing, well, I moved probably 4 times in my 30s, and something that I advocate for very heavily is live within your means. I mean, we went from a 1-bedroom condo to a townhome to a home to ideally our forever home with fancy brick walls behind us, stone walls. Anyways, point is, I've seen people be house poor. I've seen people move too soon, and especially in today's hot real estate market. Don't be house poor. Live within your means and really make sure that you're in a position that you're comfortable, that you can afford your mortgage regardless of the situation that you're in financially. And it's comfortable and you have enough money set aside to take care of all these other things that I mentioned previously, versus letting the mortgage and the home make you house poor and put you behind the 8 ball. Finally, the biggest thing that I learned in my 30s is on this theme of happiness that you keep hearing me tout and us tout. And I would tell you, if you asked a younger, handsomer Andrew, I would say, yeah, I want to be rich. I want a successful business. I want to be a millionaire. I want all these grandiose things. And if you asked me the why, I didn't know at the time, but it was probably more of an empty reasoning because that's what I want. That's what I see others. It lacked an umph behind it or a meaning, which I think is critical. Today, sure, I still want all those things. And I mean, who doesn't to some degree? But if you ask me why, it's because of the end result. Why would I want to be rich? To provide for my family, to give experiences to them. More importantly, I'd love to help out others. That makes me happy. I look at, why do I want a successful business? Because I'm passionate about this work, not so I can brag that my company is bigger or smaller than someone else's. I feel passionate about this work, as do my partners and everyone that works here at Diversified. And I want this business to make a difference in people's lives. And so I look at the happiness component, and I try to frame my decisions when early in my 30s, it was more of the want, and now it's the why. And that is very critical to me, and probably the biggest aha moment I've had as I've lived through unfortunate situations and realizing tomorrow's not promised and that I'm on this planet for a purpose. What is that, and what drives happiness to me and to the world? And so if I can leave you with a final thought, it is really to make sure you prioritize your happiness. You think the why behind your financial decisions. And what you'll find is if you follow your passions and you follow joy, good things ensue almost always. And I'm not saying that just from my personal experience, but being someone who's seen hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals in their 30s go through this financial journey that we are all on. So that's it. So you learn what I've reflected on over this as I've taken the plunge over the hill about my personal finances and others that I've seen and coached, both on the protection, the wealth, and the meaningful side of things. And I think if you go slowly and you take some of this advice, you'll be in a great position to be successful and hit your roaring 40s with nothing but gusto and being in a great financial spot. So, hope you enjoyed my first ever installment of my video blog. And as always, stay wealthy, stay healthy, stay happy. I'm Andrew Rosen. Till next time.